This is the Pickles Picks podcast with Necromedes the Thrice-Reborn and me, Pickles the Demonic Unicorn.
You're just a unicorn. You're not demonic at all. It's very disappointing.
I was summoned in a summoning circle. There is no such thing as a unicorn summoning circle. Therefore, I am demonic.
That's very sad.
Or demonetized. We aren't sure.
Maybe.
We are brought to you by Epic Fantasy Novels on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This is Dune, Episode 7. On Audible, we are at timestamp 156.08 through 2:23:07.
So what goes on in this chapter?
Well, we start out with a blurb from private Bene Gesserit files, and this is unlike any of the other intros that we have gotten because most of the time they're like from a children's history or from, textbooks or memoirs, but this is something that isn't necessarily meant for just the average person's eyes.
The other ones sound like propaganda. Well, this sounds like something like an analysis from a CIA briefing or something.
Right, and this talks about the Missionaria Protectiva. And it seems to me that they are a propaganda machine that puts false prophecy in religions around the universe in order to manipulate the greater universe to protect Bene Gesserit personnel.
Well, I think this is a particular planet it's put on, mostly.
Right, but they've done this on multiple planets, not just Arrakis.
Yes.
And the one thing that this intro points out is that Jessica's powers were grossly underestimated. And that opens up into a chapter pretty much from Jessica's point of view.
Yeah, she gets two big scenes.
Yeah, she does get two very big scenes. In the beginning, Jessica's overlooking the move. Already, the guild is unpacking everything. And they're in Arakeen. They are not in the main city. This used to be the capital of the Empire. It's no longer the capital of the Empire. The Harkonnens had a capital big palace in the capital of Carthage. But that is not where we are. That's not where...
that was the old Harkonnen camp.
Right. It's not where the Atreides have decided to settle, though. They've decided to start anew in this new place.
Which is, seems like a seat of the old empire, which we really don't know what the old empire is.
Right. Jessica talks about how the architecture in the hall is really impressive, and it reminds her of the architecture in her Bene Gesserit
training area?
Yeah, I don't remember what they call it, like sisterhood area, but where it was warm and inviting the way that she was used to it. Here it's all bleak stone and dark hangings. The beams are made of wood, which isn't from this planet. The only reason that it's here at all is because this used to be the capital of the Empire, and
I don't think the whole empire.
I'm not entirely sure. Did they say?
I don't think it's the capital. I think it was during the old empire. I don't think it was the capital of the old empire.
I thought it was the capital of the empire.
We'll have to go back and check.
Well, anyway. So she finds a painting of the Duke's father and a trophy head of the bull. She is not happy about finding this. It's not something that she likes at all. The Duke comes in, and she really romanticizes him.
Well, what's he fussing around with? He's fussing around with something.
Oh, he's fussing around with a key.
No, what is she doing?
What do you mean?
She's the picture in the bullhead.
Yeah, she doesn't want to hang it. It's being unpacked right now. And she doesn't want to place it where in the dining hall where she knows that he's going to want it.
We don't really know why.
Right.
Because we're not given any information about why it's such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think while you're reading that? Why we wondered why this was a big deal? Just she doesn't like a big, ugly, old... Like if I wanted a giant Minotaur head in my castle, you might not like it.
Probably not.
But since I summoned you, you're my familiar, you'd have to live with it.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But she kind of is a familiar in that sort of sense. I mean, she's a concubine. She never married him. And they bring that up, the fact that
she was paid. She was bought for.
Yeah, she was bought for and paid. And that, he tells her that she should be thankful they never married. Otherwise, she'd have to put up with it at every meal. And she's under no obligation to do that now.
And in answer to the question you asked earlier, are there any other concubines or another wife?
And that answers that question. There are not.
So what are they? What's the big beef about? What's the conflict between Duke Leto and Jessica?
What do you mean?
They're talking about the painting, right?
Right, they're talking about the painting. He wants it hung up. She doesn't want it hung up. In the end, of course, he wins, and she is stuck having to hang up a picture of a bull who killed her father-in-law.
Well, we don't know that until later.
Right.
We don't know until Shadow Mapes asks later on.
Right.
So they kind of draw that out for the whole chapter.
Okay. Yeah, they do. I'm not entirely sure why they spent quite as much time on it as they did. I didn't think that they needed to, because they tend to mention a few things about the painting and then go on about something else, and then mention something else about the painting and then go on about something else. So in between them talking about the painting, he's supposed to be there to be hanging the key of Caledon Castle. And I'm not sure why they still have this key or why it's so important, because Caledon Castle is no longer in their possession.
Well, it seems obvious to me that it's a finality. Remember, she mentioned it's a finality, that Caledon's gone and now they're here in this new planet.
Right.
And that's what hanging the key must mean. They stated explicitly. But the whole point is the whole point about the painting is to get you thinking what's so important about it. And they mentioned that, do you remember what the age of the Duke in the painting was?
Yeah, very young.
It's the same age as Duke Leto.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to this guy?
He got killed by a bull.
So that's why she's upset, because it's a constant reminder of his mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we heard that he has very little chance of surviving for the Bene Gesserit. So that's what's important about the painting, and why it's symbolic. It's a writing thing.
Mm-hmm. But the big thing about Jessica is that she doesn't want to eat anywhere near it. It's not even just that it exists. It's that he insists that it exists in her eating area.
Well, why? They tell you why, though.
So why don't you tell us?
Because it's part of their heritage. It's part of their customs.
But they never really go into it as to why.
Well, they say it's the honor of the house.
Mm-hmm.
They explicitly state.
But they don't have any of the other relatives with the ways that they died on display anywhere.
Not that we know of.
No.
But it's his father.
Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, when his father died, they decided to decapitate the bull, and which is really strange, because if he was killed by the bull, then who killed the bull?
Well, I assume they try to save him once he was gored by the bull.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
But
the bull
it's not
ever
like he
wins
hopped back up and killed the bull.
Well, there is a whole prequel series you can start reading about Duke Leto.
And we'll find out about the bull.
His father, yeah. Right? It's not a normal bull. It's some kind of a super bull, too.
Mm-hmm. So we get into the fact that Jessica's going to be eating in her rooms, and she's got poison sniffers, so she doesn't need to worry about that. I don't think that's anything that she was worried about immediately. Because quite honestly, I would assume that some of her powers would be able to detect poisons.
Well, I think only when it enters her body. I don't think she can magically she has power over her own body, but she can't like. Well, maybe she should have super smelling or something, but I guess they don't turn her.
Yeah, or
they don't
also,
think
like-
Bene Gesserit into dogs. So.
Well, I mean, like, so, like, if it hits her tongue, do you think would her body be able to get rid of it or not?
Well, I think that might be more of a Reverend Mother type deal. I don't think her level might be able to necessarily stop a poison.
A question about Reverend Mothers, I mean, like, I always assumed that it was like they were supposed to be the best of the best, right?
They have to go through a process
Right.
to become a Reverend Mother.
But I can assume that there's got to be more than one.
Oh, there's a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more sisters than there are mothers.
Okay. So, like, technically, Jessica could at some point become a Reverend Mother.
Perhaps.
Okay.
But it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of opportunity. I mean, how would you do it?
Well, I don't know.
We'll find out. Yes, right?
Yep.
I like they point out, they keep on Dufur is pretty good at security, and he secured the whole thing, and there's absolutely nothing to worry about.
Right. The next thing that they talk about is that Hawat got Fremen servants, and some of them were previous servants to the Harkonnens in this particular area, but pretty much because they hate the Harkonnens, they've been found, safe to be able to still minister to the Atreides.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Dufur could never be wrong.
No,
it's not like they might get someone sneaking a knife and almost stabbing the Lady Jessica to death.
Yeah, pretty much. So the head of house wants to serve Jessica because she's a Bene Gesserit, but there's also another reason for this is because that she wants to give Jessica a test.
Who is this person?
This person is...
Shout out Mapes.
Shout out Mapes.
How do you like that name?
I want to know what well dipper means.
Well, think about it. If you're on a desert planet where water is like gold, who's going to be a very important person?
The person that works at the well?
So a well dipper probably is someone who takes water out of the well.
Or it could be somebody that's very wise.
Makes sense. So I assume it's an honorary title, but maybe a literal title too.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with Shout Out Mapes?
Okay, we just kind of skipped a part.
What part did we skip?
We skipped the part where Leto is telling Jessica that she's really good at compartmentalizing her thoughts when she's able to put her upset aside and talk about resetting the household.
Mm-hmm.
And the Duke's thinking about waiting for more staff to arise, and as her questions become more domestic, he kind of wishes they were normal people. And I think that's really important.
Well, she used a Bene Gesserit trick to calm herself.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the other one about fear, so...
I'm not entirely sure that is a thing about calming herself. I'm pretty sure that is just a female thing.
You think? Well, she did say 2 quick breaths.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. You'll be the expert at that.
She could have just counted to 10.
She just counts to 2 with 2 quick breaths.
Yep. She's that good. But the picture's going to go up anyway. And the bull's head's going to go up anyway. So she's not in the best mood when she meets this servant.
Shout out Mapes.
Yes. And Jessica's actually thinking when Shout Out Mapes shows up that, she could kind of use a vacation somewhere else away from everything. Then she meets this little person that she wasn't counting on meeting quite so soon. And Shout Out Mapes is really kind of excited to be working in this area. She's excited to be working for Jessica, and she's really excited about the idea that she's not wearing a still suit and she's not dead.
Because that's the only time you're not wearing a still suit, when you're a Fremen.
Right, and Jessica is kind of freaked out with the idea of moisture equaling luxury on this planet.
So this is the first time we actually get to see in person a Fremen. What's your impression of the Fremen?
I'm not entirely sure that she would be a typical Fremen because it seems like she's very old and, kind of an elderly person, very tough, but not necessarily the same type of person that you would meet. I mean, she's almost a caricature. You would expect to see her, like, walking out of any little anime as this little stooped over grandma-type character that could totally whoop your ass.
I never got an impression of her as being stooped over. She seemed to be, she was lifting up a bullhead.
Yeah, but okay, maybe I just got like a little old grandma that just totally whoops ass and stuff, but I just kind of saw her.
They did mention her hair was gray.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just seeing her in my head older than she is.
But she has a secondary purpose.
She does.
She's sneaky.
She is sneaky. And she's there to test Jessica. She's got a Chris, and it's the Blade of Arrakis.
Chris knife.
It's a Chris knife. And it's the Blade of Arrakis. And Jessica is supposed to define exactly what the knife is. Now, they keep talking about if somebody sees the knife and they're uncleansed, they're not allowed to leave the planet uncleansed. People are supposed to be able to look at the knife. They never get into what uncleansed means.
Well, that's what you have to wait for the future, I guess.
Right.
With some kind of religious significance.
Mm-hmm.
But what is this? What is this day of this Chris knife made out of? A tooth, right?
Yeah, and it's a white...
A tooth of what?
Sandworm?
Sandworm.
Da, da, da.
This is our first experience with the sandworm, too.
Right. But it doesn't also tell us if the knife is carved from a tooth of a sandworm or if a sandworm's tooth just happens to look like that.
I think it's just a tooth. Maybe the handle, of course, is not from the...
Yeah, but it's made out of this, like...
crystals. I think they mentioned it's a crystalline.
Yeah, it's like a crystalline material. The sun dances off it really well. It makes me wonder, like, sandworms are supposed to be enormous, right? And I assume they have many teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So how come there's only one knife like this?
No, there's more than one.
Okay.
All the Fremen, I think, get it, but I think we don't know that yet.
Oh, okay.
It's like a passage, a rite of passage, I think. It's been a while since I read the book.
Wow.
There's definitely not just one.
Okay.
So I'm assuming this is like, so she's doing a test on Jessica. Well, this passage, this whole part of the chapter really brings together a bunch of hints from previous chapters, like the mission area Protectiva, and all the things we learn about Dune and Fremen, and now we get to see it all coming to fruition. But it seems like they should lay off on the seriousness of all these premonitions, all these lore, because they almost stabbed Jessica to death. I mean, what kind of...
Yeah, and the thing is that it was like, the Protectiva people had put this knife and its mythos, alongside of their mythos, But, it's I don't know how to explain it. Like, the flow of energy didn't work both ways.
Well, I'm not sure you're talking about, but she's apparently in some kind of prophecy.
She knew about them, or they knew about her, but she didn't know about them, and it almost got her killed.
She had a guess. That was kind of exciting.
Yeah, that was kind of freaky, because, anything that she said, if the first words out of her mouth hadn't been maker, like, who knows what would have happened?
And she just guessed. This is kind of like the Gollum thing, where, with the time answer.
Yeah, and it's also weird that, like, she said maker and the lady, like, let out kind of a screechy
What do you think maker
scream.
means?
Huh?
What do you think maker means? It's so important. We don't know for the chapter. It's speculation.
I think it probably still has to be with one of the chosen one.
It refers to a chosen one?
Yeah, I think it's in reference to a chosen one.
Okay. Who? Paul,
Probably
maybe?
Paul.
That's a good idea. Possible.
But it also could be Jessica because of the way that the chapter started out saying that her powers had been underestimated. So Jessica and the lady speak for a while, and once Jessica answers her riddles correctly, the lady hands over the crysknife to Jessica, who has to keep it secret. But then Jessica, before she puts it away, realizes that the knife hasn't been fed blood, which it has to be fed once every, was it fortnight?
I think every time you sheathe it, you have to be sheathed in blood. That's usually how it works on these primitive things.
Right, but on top of that, they also said the blade needed to be fed on a regular basis.
I don't think so. I think it's. Well, I assume that Jessica knew some of these patterns Missionaria Protectiva did, and one of them was the sheathing the blade in blood.
Okay.
Which was she was kind of guessing. It was kind of scary that she had a guess. But you guessed right. I think what you might be messing up with is that the Christ knife, once it's attuned to an individual person, it has to be kept next to their bodies, or after a week it'll start to decay.
Oh, okay.
So she said it was an untuned Christ knife, but now it's going to be tuned to her because she passed the test.
Okay.
Because she knew the maker.
Okay, so how does that work? Is it magic?
I assume it's somehow. I'm not sure why it would tune yourself to a particular human being.
Or just because of answering a question.
I assume it's attuned when you just keep it next to your body for a long time.
Yeah, but when the person that delivered it kept it next to their body for a long time.
I assume it's a brand new Christ knife. This is all speculation on my part.
Yeah, but then why wouldn't it have just bonded to the lady before she gave the knife to Jessica?
Maybe it takes a week.
I guess.
I assume it takes a certain amount of time to bond. But it's probably I'm guessing it's a recognition that she's now one of the freemen.
Right.
Or somehow associated with them, like the prophecies, which they don't 100% know. You think they try to keep up on what the prophecies they've been planting have been morphing into?
Right, that's kind of what I was saying. The exchange of information just isn't working both ways.
Yeah.
So they're just putting this knowledge out into the ether, and they're kind of expecting it not to change or morph throughout the generations, and that's just kind of not the way that people operate.
Well, who knows? No one has ever done something like that before, as far as I know. Have some kind of multi-thousand-year group planting seeds of prophecies across multiple religions to protect their members. It seems like an awful long-term thinking group.
Yeah, but they were also doing 1,000-year-long breeding programs to, supposedly get to this one end person.
The Kwisatz Haderach, which Paul might be. So I like this chapter because all the stuff that we're learning about Dune, Arrakis, the Missionaria Protectiva, all has been building to this point. And then I thought it was rather dramatic. The near death of Jessica by this little Freeman woman, servant. I thought it was quite dramatic. What's your opinion of the chapter?
I think that it made the characters a lot more easily accessible to the reader. I mean, before this, you didn't really know what the characters were thinking and what their motivations are, other than moving the plot along. And this just made it appear more human than they had before. Like, they're arguing about what they're going to hang on the walls, and, they just moved and everybody's kind of bickering with each other. And they're trying to find the space, and they kind of both wish that they were in a place where there wasn't so much bustle in their lives. And, he thinks she's beautiful, and she worries about him all the time. And they seem more like a regular couple.
They're humanized.
Yeah. I mean, before they were just kind of like, and here's the Duke, and he's kind of this, hero figure that you sort of see from afar. This is the first time you really see. I think it's the first time you really see him regarding his family instead of just regarding a particular goal.
I have to give points take points away from Lucifer for letting a woman in with the Christ knife, almost killing Lady Jessica.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
But I think they were trying to...
Because one of the last things that Jessica says is that Howard said the place was safe, but Jessica doesn't believe it because, I mean, like, really?
Okay, so what do you think is going to happen in the next chapters? How are we going to go?
Well, it ends with the pitcher and the bullhead are going to be hung by the servant, who is now acting like a servant and will probably continue acting like a servant from here on out because Mapes knows that Jessica is the chosen one. I don't think Jessica, and this is the thing, I think that Jessica is the chosen one. I think Mapes knows a lot more, I think she knows things a lot more accurately than Jessica understands them at this point in time.
You think?
Mm-hmm. I think it's not just that Mapes has been programmed to recognize Jessica. I think she would have done it on her own without the programming.
No. Well, I think it was supposed to be all bullshit. It's a false prophecy they're following. There's no real prophecy.
Yeah, but is that true? Just because a prophecy is made up, does that mean it's not real?
Yes, if you follow it intentionally.
Well, that's kind of what happens with prophecies.
I guess. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen in the chapters of next? Are we going to see the death of Duke Leto, or are we going to...
Oh, I don't think that's going to happen yet.
Is Paul and Jessica doomed?
Well, the last thing that they said was that Paul was going to be summoned so he could go and oversee some bureaucratic stuff that's going to be happening. So I honestly think that would be a good time to introduce Paul into the ways of the universe and introduce the reader into the more intricacies of the way things work and the way things are manipulated within the realm of their existence.
Yeah. Only how Dune works, how it functions.
Yeah, but also now what their place in the universe is now that it's shifted.
Well, they're precarious right now because they expect an attack at any second. Okay. So what's your rating on the chapter?
I will give the chapter probably an 8.5, maybe. Just because it made me like the characters more.
Okay, it made it more human? How about the whole book so far?
The whole book so far, I'm still going to probably give it about a 7 because it hasn't really... And it might just be that we're consuming it in such small bites that I don't think that it's... From what I remember when I read it the first time around, I had to choke the book down. This time, it isn't like that, but it still isn't capturing my interest the way that I think it should.
You're not interested at all about it?
No, I'm still more interested in it, but I wish it would go quicker.
Well, we're only doing one chapter at a time.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I know the book is... If I had the book in front of me and I saw the thickness of it, I would probably be intimidated. But since I don't actually have to look at that, because the copies that I have are on my Kindle and on Audible, I think that...
Less intimidating?
Yeah, I think it's less intimidating. I think that it's causing me to...
Do I step it up through 4 or 5 chapters at once?
Oh, geez, I don't know if I could do that. We could do 2 chapters at a time.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Okay, so talk us out.
All right, so this is Necromedes and Pickles, and once again, we are brought to you by Epic Fantasy Channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.